Ladies and gentlemen, let me pose a question. Who is preventing you from living fully right now? Reflect on this. Is it the government, your boss, your family, or something closer within yourself? Many believe their struggles stem from external forces, but upon closer inspection, the chains are not around their hands. They reside in their minds. Let's break these chains today. People claim they desire happiness, yet if you observe closely, most have structured their lives around suffering. Misery has become their comfort zone, a familiar space where they feel oddly secure. Remove their problems and they feel lost because their identity is intertwined with their struggles. They wake thinking about what's wrong, go to bed clinging to pain, and in between, narrate their suffering to anyone who listens. This isn't to dismiss real difficulties. Life challenges everyone. However, there's a difference between facing challenges and carrying them like badges of honor. Some aren't interested in solving their problems because these issues provide an excuse to remain as they are. If they truly released their suffering, they'd have no reason not to grow. And that's a terrifying thought for many. Observe people in groups, friends or colleagues. What do you hear? They're not talking about the joy of being alive or life's infinite possibilities. Instead, they complain about work, family, government, weather. If someone dares to be joyful, others look at them strangely. Why? Because misery has become the accepted language of human interaction. Even when given opportunities to change, people hesitate. Unhappy with their job, they complain daily, but suggest quitting to pursue something they love, and they'll present 100 reasons why they can't. They've convinced themselves their suffering is necessary, that they have no choice. But truthfully, suffering is a habit, a repeated pattern so ingrained they don't realize they're perpetuating it. If you examine closely, you'll see people decorate their suffering like a room they've lived in for years. They arrange complaints neatly, polish disappointment until it shines, and stack fears in a corner ready to serve as excuses. Try to take any of it away, and they'll fight to keep it. This is because they've mistaken their suffering for their identity. Ask them who they are, and they'll recount their problems, believing past struggles define them. Without those struggles, they wouldn't know who they are. Some even compete over who suffers more. One says, "I had a terrible day at work," and the other responds, "Oh, that's nothing. You should hear what happened to me." It's as if the one who suffers most wins. But what exactly do they win? A life spent in pain, waiting for things to change while doing nothing to alter them. Ask people why they're unhappy, and they'll give you a long list. Bad relationships, financial troubles, childhood trauma, unfair treatment. But ask why they're not addressing these issues, and suddenly they fall silent. Taking action means stepping into the unknown, and the unknown is frightening. Even if their current life is miserable, at least it's familiar. So they choose familiarity over freedom. When offered solutions to their problems, they often don't take them. Instead, they argue why their suffering is unique, their case different, why they can't simply let go. Tell them to focus on what they can do instead of what they can't, and they'll say, "It's not that simple." But the reality is, it is that simple. They just don't want to accept it because then they'd lose their excuse to stay in the comfort of their misery. Some even fear happiness. Though they may not admit it aloud, deep down, they worry that becoming happy will lead to something going wrong. They've trained their minds to believe happiness is fleeting, suffering permanent. So they cling to pain like an old friend, convincing themselves that at least this way they're prepared for the worst. It's not suffering itself that holds people back. It's their attachment to it. They've grown so accustomed to it that they don't know how to exist without it. Tell them they have the power to be free and they hesitate, not because they don't want freedom, but because they don't know what life would look like without the weight they've carried for so long. From childhood, people are conditioned to avoid risks. Parents rush forward with outstretched hands, cautioning, "Don't fall." The child about to explore freely hesitates. That tiny hesitation stays with them as they grow, multiplying, deepening, until their entire life becomes about avoiding falls rather than striving to climb. People desire success, freedom, rising above circumstances, but the fear of failing paralyzes them. They stand at the mountain's base, dreaming of the view from the top, yet never take the first step because they're afraid they might stumble. They don't realize stumbling is part of the process. The greatest climbers have fallen more times than most have tried, but society doesn't teach this. It glorifies success without teaching how to embrace failure, so they hesitate, choosing safety over growth, comfort over challenge. They tell themselves they're waiting for the right time, skills, circumstances, but deep down, they're avoiding. Climbing means risking failure, and failure to them is unacceptable. When they see someone else fall, they use it as confirmation they were right to stay put. Look at that person, they say. They tried and failed. I don't want to end up like that. But they fail to see the full picture. They don't realize the person who fell today may rise tomorrow, that every fall carries a lesson, and those who learn from their falls eventually climb higher than anyone who never tried. Fear of failure isn't just about external judgment. It's about how people view themselves. If they try and fail, they believe it reflects their worth. Instead of seeing failure as part of learning, they see it as evidence they're not good enough. To protect their self-worth, they never try. If they don't try, they can't fail. But if they don't try, they also can't succeed. Some convince themselves they're playing it smart by staying put. Why take unnecessary risks, they say. Why struggle when I can stay comfortable? But standing still is its own kind of failure. Life moves forward, changes constantly, and those who refuse to climb aren't staying safe, they're falling behind. Fear of falling stops people not just from big leaps, but small steps too. They hesitate to speak up in meetings, fearing they'll sound foolish. They delay starting new skills, worried they'll be bad initially. They avoid expressing feelings, fearing rejection. Yet everyone great at something was once a beginner. Everyone successful made mistakes. Everyone who climbed fell at some point. Fear creates a cycle. Avoiding action because of failure keeps people stuck. The longer they stay stuck, the more fearful they become. Confidence erodes, dreams feel impossible, and the very thing they feared, falling, becomes their reality. Not because they climbed and fell, but because they never climbed at all. They look at others who've reached great heights and assume those people were just lucky, gifted, destined for success. They don't see the failures, rejections, struggles, moments of doubt those individuals endured. They only see the final result and conclude success is for others, not them. Their minds play tricks, telling them they're protecting themselves, when in reality they're imprisoning themselves. The voice whispers, "What if you fail?" but never asks, "What if you succeed?" It reminds them of everything that could go wrong, but never shows them what could go right. People often interpret fear as a signal to stop, but fear isn't always a warning. It's sometimes an invitation to step beyond the familiar, challenge oneself, and grow. Fear isn't telling them to stop climbing, it's reminding them they're alive. Yet instead of embracing this, most step back, waiting for fear to disappear before taking action. But fear doesn't vanish, it shrinks when faced, fades when you move forward despite it. The unfortunate truth is, most people spend their lives waiting until they feel ready, sure they'll succeed, or granted permission. Those who truly take control don't wait. They climb even when scared. From childhood, people are trained to seek permission. In school, they raise hands to speak. At home, they ask to go outside and play. At work, they wait for approval before making decisions. Over time, this becomes so ingrained that even when no one is stopping them, they hesitate, waiting for someone to give them the green light to live as they truly wish. They convince themselves they need external validation before acting. They wait for parents to approve choices, society to agree with dreams, friends to support plans. Without approval, they second-guess themselves, pausing instead of trusting instincts, asking, "Is this okay?" But life isn't lived by permission slips. Some wait for authority figures, teachers, bosses, mentors, even strangers to say, "Yes, go ahead, do it." But what if no one ever says that? What if the permission they're waiting for never comes? Most never ask this question and remain stuck. Others wait for perfect conditions. I'll start my business when the economy improves, or I'll follow my passion when my family understands, or I'll take the leap when I'm 100% ready. But perfection never arrives. There's always a reason to delay. Waiting. For permission and waiting for the perfect moment are the same. Both are fear disguised as patience. Society doesn't encourage taking charge of one's life. It trains people to follow predetermined paths, get a stable job, live a certain way, follow rules. Attempt something unconventional, and the world asks, "Are you sure?" That small question plants doubt, leading to hesitation. Opportunities slip away. Some seek permission from unqualified sources, friends who've never chased dreams, family members who've never taken risks, those who play it safe. How can someone who's never stepped outside the lines advise on coloring freely? How can someone who's never climbed give permission to ascend? Waiting for permission isn't limited to major decisions. It happens daily. Someone hesitates to speak up in meetings, waiting to be invited. Another refrains from sharing creative work, waiting for validation. People hold back opinions, seeking agreement first. This habit becomes automatic, unnoticed. Ideas that could transform lives remain dormant because their owners seek approval from those incapable of seeing the vision. The problem isn't the idea, it's seeking permission from those who lack perspective. History's breakthroughs occurred because someone didn't wait for permission. No one gave permission for the first flight, the internet, or world-changing art and leadership. These pioneers decided waiting wasn't an option. Most spend years waiting for a sign that never comes, seeking approval from those who may never give it, hoping the world will tap them on the shoulder and say, "Now you're allowed to pursue your dreams." But life doesn't work that way. The only permission they need is the one they refuse to grant themselves. People don't realize how addicted they are to excuses. Excuses provide comfort, justifying why they're not where they want to be. Instead of confronting growth's discomfort, they wrap themselves in familiar explanations. Their circumstances are different, struggles unique. They mistake excuses for facts, absolute truths holding them back. Every time they consider change, their mind generates reasons why it's impossible. I don't have time, money, experience, connections. The list is endless. The more they repeat these statements, the more they believe them. They convince themselves they're victims of circumstance, that success belongs to others, that they're unlucky. But these excuses are the chains binding them. People cling to excuses because they offer an easy way out. Admitting control over their lives means admitting responsibility for failures, and that's uncomfortable. It's easier to say, "I could have succeeded, but life was unfair," than "I didn't act enough to succeed." The first allows staying in comfort. The second demands change. Excuses come in various forms. Some blame external factors: bad economy, lack of opportunity, unsupportive family, unfair systems. Others cite internal ones: low confidence, bad luck, lack of talent. But these are all flavors of avoidance. People have risen from poverty, built empires without formal education, created extraordinary things starting with nothing. The difference isn't the starting point but refusing to make excuses. Some defend their excuses vehemently, suggest they have the power to change, and they'll list 100 reasons why they can't. "It's not that simple," they say. "You don't understand my situation." They react defensively, as if excuses are part of their identity. Removing excuses feels like a personal attack because without them, they'd have no reason left to stay stagnant. Excuses are contagious. Surround yourself with complainers, and soon you'll share their mindset. Conversely, surround yourself with proactive individuals, and your excuses begin to fade. Environment plays a huge role in breaking free from excuses. Excuses often masquerade as logic. "I need to wait until I'm ready. I should research more. I'll start when things calm down." These sound reasonable but are sophisticated. Procrastination. There's never a perfect time, enough research, or complete stability. The only real choice is to start despite uncertainty. Some make excuses so automatically they don't notice. Ask why they haven't pursued dreams and they respond instantly as if rehearsed. "I have kids, I can't. I'm too old, I don't have energy." They don't question these statements, accepting them as reality. But beneath, they're just stories they've told themselves for years. And like any story, they can rewrite it. Excuses offer temporary relief, removing pressure to act. They allow saying, "It's not my fault." But this relief is short-lived. Over time, unfulfilled potential weighs heavier. Dreams fade, desires become regrets. Eventually, looking back, they realize the only thing truly stopping them was believing they couldn't. The most dangerous aspect of excuses is their illusion of reality. When someone says, "I don't have time," they genuinely believe it. But analyzing their day reveals hours wasted on distractions. Saying, "I can't afford it," feels true. But tracking spending shows money disappearing on trivialities. Self-imposed limitations build lives around false beliefs. Excuses trap people in cycles. Wake, routine, same old stories, unfulfilled. Bedtime. Watch others succeed and think, they were lucky. See opportunities pass and convince yourself they weren't meant for you. Observe someone doing what you've always wanted and think, I wish I could. But the truth is, you could if you let go of excuses. People live believing in tomorrow, the soft cushion leaned on when avoiding today's discomfort. Tomorrow whispers, not now but soon, creating the comforting illusion that procrastination is harmless. Tomorrow feels close enough to inspire hope, far enough to prevent action. Dreaming of starting a business? Next month I'll begin. Wanting fitness? Next Monday I'll start. Repairing relationships? Next time I see them. But time passes. Tomorrow turns into next week, next year. Before they know it, years have gone and they're still in the same place making the same promises. Belief in tomorrow protects from today's discomfort. Action requires effort, courage, possibly failure. It demands energy and discipline. Tomorrow asks for nothing, nodding in agreement, saying, yes, you'll do it, just not now. And they believe it repeatedly. There's always a reason to wait. I'm too tired. I need to think more. I'm not ready. These are excuses disguised as logic. Minds justify inaction, convincing that delay is strategic rather than avoidance. Truthfully, most aren't waiting because it's wise, they're waiting because it's easy. Tomorrow feels safe, allowing fantasy retention that eventually they'll do what they say. It lets them believe they're progressing, even without steps. I'll meditate soon. I'll quit bad habits eventually. I'll take control when the time is right. Such thoughts prevent feeling like failures while continuing to delay. Some spend entire lives in this illusion, waiting for a perfect moment that never arrives. Once I have more money, I'll chase my dream. Once I'm confident, I'll take risks. Once life calms, I'll work on myself. But life doesn't fully calm. Confidence doesn't precede action, it follows. Conditions won't be perfect, yet people keep waiting, as if the universe will hand them ideal situations. Others convince themselves they need more preparation. More knowledge, skills, resources. They research endlessly, gathering information, believing they're progressing. But preparation without action is procrastination. No amount of reading or planning replaces actual experience. People underestimate how quickly time passes. They assume endless tomorrows for dreams. Days turn to months, months to years. One day they look back, realizing all the time they thought they had is gone. They thought they'd fix friendships, chase passions, become who they wanted. But time doesn't wait. It moves forward, with or without them. Tomorrow becomes the most dangerous lie people tell themselves. It sounds innocent, even responsible, but it steals dreams quietly. It robs urgency, hunger, fire for change. It tricks them into thinking they're not making a choice when, in reality, every time they choose to wait, they choose stagnation. Some wake one day, realizing decades passed in this illusion. Opportunities once available are gone, energy faded, doors closed. The saddest part? They were never stopped by anything real, just belief that tomorrow would always be there. The greatest tragedy isn't lacking potential, intelligence, or opportunities. It's allowing oneself to be held back by illusions. Comfort in misery traps them in familiar suffering. Fear of falling stops them from climbing. Need for permission makes them wait for a green light that won't come. Addiction to excuses convinces them they're powerless. Illusion of tomorrow lulls them into thinking they have all the time in the world. But life doesn't wait. The clock doesn't pause for hesitation. Every moment spent in fear, doubt, or delay is lost forever. The difference between those who take control and those who remain stuck isn't talent, luck, or privilege. It's willingness to act despite discomfort, courage to move forward despite fear, realization that no one is coming to grant permission, no excuse is sufficient, and tomorrow is a promise that may never arrive. The question isn't whether people are capable, it's whether they'll choose to step beyond fears, excuses, and mental barriers. The life they want isn't waiting in the distant future, it's waiting for them to stop waiting.